On this episode of China Uncensored, when sharing high-level government intelligence, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. Wait, that's a terrible idea. Who came up with that? Hi, welcome to China Uncensored. I'm your host, Chris Chappell. In our top story, there could be major ongoing intelligence leaks among English-speaking countries. And guess who's to blame? There's something called the Five Eyes. No, it's not a group of exotic Batman villains from the 1970s or a terrible 90s boy band. It's actually an intelligence network that was set up in 1955 between the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, Australia, and New Zealand. These 5 countries routinely share sensitive intelligence on everything from to what do you expect? It's highly sensitive information. But there could be a leak from within New Zealand. And I'm not talking about its delicious dairy. The leak is what former CIA China expert Peter Mattis talked about when he testified last month before the U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission. He suggested that maybe New Zealand ought to be kicked out of the boy band formerly known as the Five Eyes. Then terrorists and evil regimes would be left to tremble before the might of the intelligence network Four Eyes. Just try and take our lunch money. So what's the possible leak within New Zealand intelligence? Well, this is China Uncensored, so you guessed it, it's Russia. No, it's the Chinese Communist Party. They've gotten very close to or inside New Zealand's political core. One example is Jian Yang, a New Zealand member of parliament. He's a New Zealand citizen now, but when he lived in China, he just so happened to train Chinese spies at a top military university. Don't worry, he's totally not a spy himself. Now, when that story broke last year, well, the New Zealand government did nothing. Jian Yang remained a member of parliament. And China expert Peter Mattis is concerned New Zealand's former Prime Minister, Bill English, routinely briefed Jian Yang on sensitive China-related intelligence, intel that may have ended up on the desks of Chinese Communist Party officials. As for the current Prime Minister, her party has accepted donations that may be linked to the Communist Party. Mattis points out the level of Communist Party infiltration in Australia is also similar to New Zealand, but he did not recommend Australia be kicked out. That's because Australia has been responding to the problem, while New Zealand has denied there's any problem at all. Don't worry, we might not be stuck with four-eyed intelligence. Mattis suggests that New Zealand could be replaced by Japan, and they'd bring to the table giant robots and tentacles. Maybe let's skip the tentacles. Speaking of giving sensitive information to the Chinese Communist Party, Facebook. At this point, it should come as no surprise that Facebook sells an incredible amount of user data. But it may surprise you that Facebook even went so far as sharing that data with at least 4 Chinese companies. One of them is Huawei, the Chinese telecommunications firm owned by a former engineer in the People's Liberation Army and that gets billions of dollars from the Chinese Communist Party. U.S. intelligence agencies have been very concerned about Huawei and the security risk they pose, since at least 2012, in fact. Facebook, though, not very concerned. Their data sharing agreements with the Chinese companies have been in place since at least 2010, and apparently are still in place. The 4 partnerships remain in effect, but Facebook officials said in an interview that the company would wind down the Huawei deal by the end of the week. Well, that's good. You gotta commend Facebook for doing what's right, after getting caught. And it's time for another fan question. Jordan Larimore asks, I have a question in regard to the South China Sea. We know that the dispute has soured the view of China in some countries, but how about relations with Taiwan, seeing as they claim the same area and occupy an island in the sea? Great question, Jordan. You're right. This is one of those weird things that both the People's Republic of China and Taiwan agree on, that everything within the 9-dash line belongs to China, though obviously they don't agree on which China that is. As you pointed out, Taiwan has had its own small island in the South China Sea for decades. It's called Ituaba. But Taiwan's Coast Guard uses it mainly for search and rescue in the area, like to help a fishing boat that capsizes, no matter what country it's from. See, when you build hospitals instead of missile silos, your neighbors react a little differently. Basically, the problem other countries have isn't China's historical claims to the South China Sea. It's the Chinese Communist Party being extremely aggressive about building up islands for military use. Also, of course, we trust Taiwan because it's everyone's ally, whereas the PRC is, at best, a frenemy. So what do you think? Leave your comments below. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time. Thanks for watching. It's hard for a controversial show like China Uncensored to get advertisers, and a lot of our YouTube videos get demonetized. That's why we rely mainly on your support. So click this orange button to visit our Patreon website and help us make China Uncensored even better.